Hello, class. This is Professor Eddie Boucher. I am your instructor for this section of History of India. The semester is the spring of 2018, and this is a condensed course beginning on March 19th. So, as a condensed course, there's lots and lots of sort of onus on you to be very organized. Organization, time management, all of that becomes vitally important when you're taking 16 weeks of material and squishing it into 8. So, anyways, let's get started. Here I am. The purpose of this video is to review the syllabus, the course requirements, and sort of generally orientate you to India and the course. So, here we go. So I've put a bunch of pictures on here of different eras in India. So here we have an artifact that was uncovered in the Indus River Valley, the oldest known large-scale civilization in India. And they believe this may have been a statue representation of the priest king. We don't know. We'll talk about that in the early units of the course. Here is King Ashoka, the Mauryan king, who converted to Buddhism and then spread Buddhism across the land. He dates to approximately 3rd century BCE, and he was very, very important in developing one of the first, large-scale imperial or empires in India. Okay, who do we have next? One of my personally favorite rulers of India. This is Akbar the Great, the Mughal leader, who's ruling in the 15th and 16th century. His palace was in Agra, and his tomb is in Agra, and it's his descendants that built the Taj Mahal. But Akbar is a very, very, very colorful character in Indian history. Next we have Guru Nanak. He was more a spiritual leader, not a temporal leader, but he's the guru means teacher, and he's the guru of the Sikh faith, which they're Sikhs all over the world, but they originated in the Punjab of North India. Here's Gandhi. Hopefully you recognize this person. He's important to the history of the more modern world, right? He was born in the 19th century and lived and worked and pushed for Indian independence in the 20th century. He's one of the most recognized 20th century figures. And here's Indira Gandhi, no relation. She is the daughter of the first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, and then she becomes the second Prime Minister of independent India and ruled on and off for decades. The United States still does not have a female president, but India did all the way back in the 1950s. There's something strange about that. Anyways, who else is important to Indian history? I have Just Kidding down here in the corner. Aziz Ansari is a hysterical comedian from South Carolina of Indian descent. Mindy Lahiri is also a fairly funny comedian. She was in The Office and The Mindy Project and is in some film with Oprah, some A Wrinkle in Time, and these folks, I'm saying Just Kidding because in the scope of Indian history, maybe they're not that important, but in popular culture and as representatives of the Indian diaspora, they're very important. And then finally, we have, that's not good. Finally, we have Narendra Modi. He is the current Prime Minister of India. He is a member of the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is they're known as the BJP. They have a coalition, a majority coalition in parliament. So he's elected prime minister. He's got rock star status across India and around the world. But he's a Hindu nationalist, which makes him a religious nationalist. So a lot of his policies favor the Hindu majority to the exclusion of others. However, he's doing an amazing job. So, like, it's more of a socialist party, but it's religiously conservative. So, um, we won't spend too much time in those politics. As a history course, we have so much to cover, but it's very important that you know who the prime minister is because he's an important character. Let me give one anecdote. I was doing research in India last summer. I was there all summer, and um, President Trump had decided that the United States was not going to attend the Environment Summit in Paris. And so Narendra Modi decided that this would be a great opportunity for India to take charge, at least, yeah, to take a large leadership role in promoting environmentalism. And one day I was at a market in Raja Park in the city of Jaipur in the state of Rajasthan, and I was purchasing some commodity, and I wanted to get a bag to carry it back to my hotel, and they pointed to a sign in Hindi on the wall and I read it, and I was like, oh, so every shopkeeper would incur a small fee if they're caught giving a plastic bag, carrying bag, to a consumer, to a shopper, and then a huge fine for the second offense, like a you don't want to pass out bags kind of fine. This takes a lot of power, a lot of resolve, and a lot of passion to push that kind of environmental movement so quickly that it actually is implemented on the ground, across the Indian subcontinent, with, a country with 1.3 billion. So this man is dynamic and has a lot of power. I just hope he wields his power for good. So far, he seems to be. Okay. I'm sure that any day now this slide will advance. Okay, so who am I? My name is Eddie Boucher, and here I am. This is actually in Jaipur. I'm with my wife here, Kayla, and I'm not a fan of these kind of pictures. I'm actually not a real fan of being on these tourist things where you're on an elephant because I don't think it's too humane. However, I had taken a group of students and faculty members from the college to India, and this just sort of, our general guide sort of just brought us here. And everybody had good fun, and there were good photo shoots, but anyways, here I am in India, exploiting an elephant. So you pronounce my name Boucher. That should not be too hard to remember. If you see my name as Dwight, that's because that's what my parents gave me as my first name in honor of a grandfather of mine. But I've always gone by Eddie. So my background, I've studied South Asian history, religion, language, literature, craft. I'm currently doing work on handicrafts and doing real ethnographic work, working with artisans on the ground in India and how they're interacting with the global world. Some fun, interesting work. I studied at UMKC, UC Berkeley, in India. Now I'm actually teaching and getting a degree, actually, a PhD in cultural studies at UNLV. So I'm not in the Kansas City area, but I still work for Johnson County Community College, and I have for many years. And I've taught several courses. This is one that I created, and I'm very happy to have you guys in the class, have you guys interested in the topic, and that's that. Okay, office hours, obviously, you would either text me, you can call me, or you can email me. It's best if you're going to email me direct to my faculty email as opposed to the reply all within D2L, because what happens when you do that is everybody can see the email. So you can directly from your personal email me to this, or you can use your institutional email. I don't care. Yeah, that would be good, like Stu Mail. And you can text me here as well or call. Just leave a number because I'm a busy guy, all right? And I definitely am good at getting back to students. Okay, so that's the course description. We don't need to read that right now. You can read it on your own time for sure. But all I'm basically saying is that our approach to this course is very much interdisciplinary. We use historical methods, sociological methods. We look at lit and art and this and that and all kinds of stuff, right? So even though the first page of the syllabus shows a whole bunch of leaders, I'm not just going to follow dynastic history necessarily. We'll definitely talk about religion and philosophy and all kinds of interesting stuff. And I never want us to fall into the trap of thinking that at any time in history that India was static and like traditional and like, oh, this timeless village. That's a misnomer. Even Gandhi sort of promoted that. And a lot of people push back on that, you know. India has always been up with what's going on in the world from the ancient times, if not a leader in world innovation and discourse. So, okay. So here are some of the objectives that I'm hoping each of you should be able to do by the end of the course. These are listed in each unit separately. There are 10 units. I'll get to that. So you can look at these. We look at the physical environment and geography and how that played into human development and settlement in India. And then we look at the ancient civilization, the entry of the Aryans and Brahmanical Hinduism and other religious traditions, Jainism, Buddhism, make our way all the way through the classical period into the Muslim era and the Mughal dynasty, all the way up to the colonial period and then to modern India, you know, independent India, which is their current condition, of course. They're a very, very powerful, stable government in the region in South Asia. So what are the texts for this book? Here they are. First is a reader. This is Voices of South Asia, and in here there are primary historical sources, and there will be assignments over that in this text. And this is just sort of random, but Patrick Peebles was one of my, he was advisor on two different, actually 3 different degrees, and he is on my committee. But I had picked this book way before that. So anyways, Stanley Wolpert, this is your main historical text. It's a new history of India. It's available in the bookstore. It's obviously, all these are available online. I don't know, you might be able to rent them. You might be able to get ebooks. It'd probably be easier to get an ebook for the Wolpert text. But anyways, and then we'll have a graded discussion over this brilliant novel that was written by Arvind Adiga in 2008. It's called The White Tiger, and it really looks at the juxtapositions of urban modern India and rural, you know, more yesterday India, and how they converge. And it's a brilliant book, a very, very entertaining read, and we're going to have a graded discussion over it. So that's that. Okay. So what do I expect of you, and what you should expect in each of the units? So there are 10 units. I separate them. The first chunk of material is units 1 through 4. Okay, and then you'll have an exam just over that material. Then units 5 and 6, and then you'll have an exam over that. And then units 7 through 10, and you'll have an exam over that. So it's fairly well organized and easy to follow, right? So here are the elements, okay? Each unit has stated objectives. You should read that first. Then you should proceed to your required reading, which is listed in each unit. Online lectures are in each of the units, okay? And they obviously relate to the unit objectives. I also put the PowerPoint notes in there if you want to download them and print them off while you're taking notes, listening to lecture. That's fine. It's a good idea. And then each unit has a critical analysis prompt where you'll be required to submit a little paper for each of the units. As a condensed course, I would suggest that you probably look at these prompts and be thinking about it as you're going through the material, the rest of the stuff in the unit. It's very, very important. Well, I'll talk about it in a second. I'll get to that. Okay, so what am I grading you on here? You're going to have a graded discussion. These have always been very good because the book is so good. People get very passionate about their point of view. That's worth 60 points. and you'll submit a discussion posting, and then you'll reply to peers. That's how that works. We have 3 exams. You can take them online. I'll say more words about that. They're each worth 100 points. Okay, and then each unit has a 10-point critical analysis paper, and that adds up to a total of 460 points. And here's how the grade scheme breaks down. Okay, so this is very straightforward. There's not a whole lot of writing. There's a fair amount of writing. You don't have separate papers outside of your CAs or critical analysis papers and your discussion paper, and then you'll write your exam, which is an essay for each one of those, just one essay from a choice. Okay, so let's look at what this discussion is. So there's one graded discussion. The topic is The White Tiger by Aravind Adiga. It's worth 60 points. And here's how I break it down, right? This is sort of the rubric. So first part, the student understands the basic facts. Who authored the source, for what audience, when, and under what conditions, circumstances. Now, obviously, this is literature review, right? It's both historical and it's literature. So it's not the same as reading a typical historical primary source, but really think about it. If you took Western Civ, you're reading a whole bunch of literature in those too as primary sources. 2, summarize the main points. This shows me that you comprehend it, you understand it. Analysis, assumptions, purposes, reasoning, right? This is real important. This is where you start to engage those higher level thinking skills. So I'm always looking for critical analysis. I like to know about how you synthesize, right? Describe historical situation, compare with what others are saying about the time, synthesizing ideas. And application is relating it to current events or other developments, right? Like when Adiga is talking about this and this in the text, that reminds me of, whatever. That reminds me of the quality of public schools in the U.S., something like that. And then finally, evaluation. This demonstrates that you understand the significance of the source for its time and for all time. Okay, so that's very sort of broad rubric that I use to evaluate your graded discussions. So here again, you write a 2-page typed original new posting over the discussion, and then you write 5 replies to your peer student postings. I'm not sure if I like 5. I'm gonna amend that. I'm gonna say you need to do 2 replies, not 5, and I'll put that on the homepage. Okay, but you write a 2-page typed original posting, right, and then you reply to 2 of your students with a minimum of a half-page reply. So it needs to be substantive and really engage in analytical discussion as opposed to just like, oh, that was great, I like it, I think the same. That's not enough, right? So, okay. I'm looking for critical analysis, original work. This is super important. If you do consult any outside sources, you must cite your sources. Failure to do so will be a 0 for the assignment, right? And maybe for the course. Rule of thumb, always cite any sources you consult. I have subscriptions to both Turnitin and Authenticate software, which it's basically foolproof. When I run it through, if you've lifted somebody's words without putting it in quotes and citing them, then you're plagiarizing, and then you get a 0. So write original work. That's the point. And if you put stuff in quotations, it'll show up that it was in another, text. But if you've cited it and done it properly, then you're okay, right? So, okay. The second basic requirement is to reply, I just said, to 2 of your peer student postings. After you read through the new postings, pick 2 to reply to, and you can read the rest of that. Okay, 3 exams. They're worth 100 points each. They're essays. The exams are really designed to test your ability to critically analyze and synthesize large amounts of information into organized and thoughtful written responses. So honestly, that means you want to develop a thesis statement. The questions are broad, so you develop a thesis statement, and then you use that essay. Once again, it should be about 2 pages. It can be longer, but 2 pages is sort of like the benchmark. But you use your thesis statement, your original point of entry and guide to your response to a question, and then you methodically defend that thesis point by point, right? And you always want to address all the elements of the essay question you choose to write on. And again, this long note at the bottom here is like, cite your sources or you're in trouble. I say, keep it simple. Only submit original work and cite all of your sources. This is not difficult. It's just not. And you get, I open the exams at particular periods, and then they're due at the end of the semester. So I'm really like, this is a big change for me. I used to have you guys, your exams were timed, you'd have to go to the testing center, et cetera, et cetera. But here you can like really develop your essay question, your essay response. If you need to go to the JCCC Writing Center, go there, I'm going to expect more because you have open books and open notes and open time and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, work on thesis development, work on organization of ideas and thoughts, and then work on, careful writing. Be deliberate, proofread your work. I mean, people can like proofread it for you, and then you implement those suggestions. I mean, these are good ideas. The goal here is that you come out a good writer and a good thinker, not to like how well can you perform under immense pressure with the clock. I mean, that's less useful. I think that more and more probably the older I get. And this is interesting, the fact that I have gone back, I've already done a whole bunch of schooling, right? I've got my double major undergrad in history and English lit, and then I have master's in history, and I've studied Hindi and Sanskrit, and I was ABD in a history and religious studies program, and now I'm in a PhD program in cultural studies. So like the fact that I'm back in school like you guys, I mean, I'm at the very end writing my dissertation, but the fact that I'm back in this makes me super empathetic to the student's situation, right? Because I'm in your shoes. I'm both roles. I'm the teacher and I'm the student. And so that's why I've made some of these changes. High stakes testing doesn't make a lot of sense to me anymore at all. So, okay. What about these little papers for each of the unit? I mean, these are only worth 10 points each. I'll put a prompt up there, and then you're required to respond to it, right? It should be about 2 pages. Again, these should be thesis driven. Honestly, even though they're worth less points, this is basically the same thing I'm looking for in your exams. A critical analysis on a particular prompt. You could like think of these prompts as essay questions for an essay exam if you're sitting to write one. It should be about 2 pages, so that's around 535 words if it was double spaced. Okay, I do not just want summary of information. It's not bad to give some summary, but I definitely want you to engage in critical thinking. Tell me what you think, okay? So that's important. And then, of course, again, cite your sources so you don't lose unnecessary points or fail the course. That would be tragic, and I don't want that to happen. So if you have questions on this, you reach out to me. That's fundamentally key. Just like reach out to me and I will be here. Okay. This just says attending online lectures, etc., right? I've pre-recorded lectures. Some of the material goes back several semesters. The material itself is still useful. Some of my anecdotes, which I use to show you how history matters through its application, right? History just for history's sake might be dreadfully boring, but if you bring it to life and you show how it applies to conditions and situations and social problems in the world today, then it's a very, very valuable source. Some of my applications might talk about current events that have passed us by, but they haven't passed us by that much. So don't freak out. You know from the syllabus what's required in this semester and this spring 2008 semester, and just get the valuable information that's topical, right? And you know, again, time management. You want to think about when you have time to view these lectures. Okay, cheating policy. Don't cheat. Plagiarism is serious, and oftentimes people don't even know they're doing it. And so you need to very, very, very proactively learn to write in your own voice and learn to cite other people's ideas. Okay? If it's someone's idea, you still should cite them in your works cited, even if you're paraphrasing them. If you're directly quoting them, put them in quotes, put the page number, and also cite that in your works cited page or your references page. I mean, all of those things are important, okay? All right, now, schedule. Here's the schedule. This is very hard to see, but if you download the syllabus, you'll be able to easily see this. But units 1 through 4, you can see the topics. We go from physical geography in the Indus River Valley all the way down to the Marians, and then we have our first exam, or our first exam opens. So that exam opens up, that first one opens up, I believe, on like April 7th. But you have until the Turn-It-In date, which I think is, you know, the first week of May sometime, to complete it. Don't procrastinate all of these until the end. Now, the critical analysis prompts, the due dates are like those for units 1, 2, 3, and 4 are due in April, just before the exam 1 opens. So just keep an eye on all your due dates and when things have to be turned in. Keep on top of it. Get ahead of yourself rather than playing catch up, because playing catch up is horrible. And then we have units 5 and 6, and then there's exam 2, and then units 7 through 10, and then there's exam 3. And then tucked in there at the end is the White Tiger graded discussion. And you can, you know, if it were me, I'd get ahead and read that too. I actually, the first time I ever saw this book, I saw it at my local library. It was just shortly after it came out, and I was taking a road trip with my wife, and so I bought the book, or I checked it out from the library while we were driving, and it's an excellent way to read books if you don't have lots and lots of time. So if you can find this as a CD, a book on tape, or MP4, or whatever, you know, just play it as you're driving to work or driving to school and home, and then you'll have the story, you'll know it, and then that assignment won't be as difficult. So anyways, that's just a piece of advice. All right, there we go. So this is your introduction to the course. It starts, well, today is March, let's see, 18th. It starts tomorrow morning. So I want to welcome you, and let's hit the ground running. And I'm always here if you need to reach out and talk to me. Okay, peace.